Let's dive in and do this. Finally. Hello, lovelies. Mina here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's your first time here. It's good to see you either way. I am here with a build that I have wanted to make since last year. It might be older than this, but the first time I saw it was last year. As far as I know, it pretty well was like the viral Halloween decoration. It was everywhere. Basically, it's a little base made to look like a bonfire, campfire, or something like that, with like bones and charred material, with a cauldron hanging over it, you know, with like sticks. And I'm going to do that in miniature because, yeah, I don't have room on my front lawn for this particular decoration as much as I love it. So I thought, who better to rock the witch's cauldron than Barbie? So this is going to be approximately Barbie scale. And I've wanted to do this since last year when I found these cauldrons. These came from the Dollar Tree. I think you can still get them this year. I don't know. I haven't been to check. The last time I was at Dollar Tree, they didn't have their Halloween stuff out yet. So I'm not sure, but plastic cauldrons are fairly common decorations that you see just about every year. The thing that held me back last year were bones. I could not find bones. I found packs of these kind of bones. They were all the same, not quite small enough. I found bags of skulls, but they're far too big. Like, they're bigger than a Barbie head. So I didn't think that would look very good. Also, it would create too much bulk underneath the cauldron. So when I found these this year at Walmart, I was tickled purple because this is exactly what I'm looking for. I can cut one of these guys up to have all the different pieces. So you'll be able to see a hand sticking up and a foot and different bones and skulls. And this is awesome. I also got for this craft this copper wired light. You'll have seen me use these before on at least my Barbie house. I use that for the Christmas decorations to wrap around the banister with the garland. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. With the pine-like garland that I made for the balcony. I use these kind of lights. These also come from the Dollar Tree. I really, really like them. We also need cardboard for the base. Now, I'm going to try something a little bit different, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. In the full-scale version of this, what's used to sort of glue everything in place is insulation foam, like expanding foam. And I think the scale I'm working with, that's going to be too much. I think it would expand beyond the parameters that I'm looking to maintain. So, cotton. I think just some cotton balls. With enough glue and paint, I think I can make this give the same effect as the expanding foam. I hope. That's the plan. Oh yeah, and we also need paint and sticks and rocks. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Okay, let's dive in and do this. Finally. First thing I'm going to do is prep the bones. only going to use one skeleton, at least to start with, and I'm going to pick the derpiest looking one because these ones I might use for something else. This one is already a little deformed, so I don't feel bad about cutting him up.
These are pliers intended for jewelry making, but I use them primarily for miniature making.
Ooh, that was easy. Just got to pull the ribcage off these little nubbins. I'm going to use this thick corrugated cardboard for the base, and we want that to be about as wide as the cauldron. So I'm going to put that there and then draw around. Like so, and then cut it out. I'm not worried too much about precisely cutting because this is all going to be covered up with stuff. I don't want to cut my table too much or myself. That's my only concern right now. My scissors are upstairs somewhere and I really don't want to go and look for them right now. So I would highly recommend scissors in this case though. Or cutting on a flat cut resistant surface. Okay, there's the base. While I wait for my hot glue gun to heat up, I'm going to use my brand new nifty hand drill that my family got me for my birthday and drill a hole in the bottom of the cauldron. Alright, and now I'm going to feed the lights through the bottom. Put a little bit of hot glue. This is my plan. We'll see how it works. Now I'm going to wrap the lights in a circle that is smaller than the base. kind of in a coil. Like so. And then I will glue them in place, and I want to leave a little bit of an edge all the way around. So I'm not gluing the lights right to the edge of the cardboard. I used the packaging, and be very careful because the copper wire is extremely conductive and it will get very hot from the glue. So that's why I used the packaging to squish things down until it cooled off a little. And now I can touch it without issue, just to make sure everything is glued down. Time to glue the bones. I think that will do.
I went ahead and painted the light bulbs with orange and red Sharpie paint markers, as you can see here, because I really want this to look like a fire. And those little lights need all the help they can get. Now I'm going in with Elmer's glue. Just going to squirt some of that in the bowl, add a little bit of water so that the glue isn't too thick. Give it a little mix so it's nice and incorporated. And now it's time to make the charred mess of the fire. And for that, I'm using cotton balls. I originally was just going to open the cotton ball, kind of thread it out a little bit, and then stick it down. I ended up clearly ripping small pieces from the cotton ball and working in smaller chunks, which ended up being a very good idea because at this scale, it's really easy to overdo it. And as bright as those lights are, they do need all the help they can get. It's going to they're going to be dimmed quite a bit once everything is covered with cotton and painted black and everything. So I found that by working in smaller pieces of cotton, it made it much more controllable. So I could put the cotton exactly where I wanted it and make sure that it was not where I didn't want it. So I could poke little holes so that the lights would shine through. I could make sure that the bones weren't completely covered up because, if you're covering up the bones, then what's the point in even putting the bones? Oh yeah, I turned the lights on. I figured that was probably a better way of working with this. This way with the lights, I know exactly where they're going to shine, and then I can see where not to cover so that I'll be able to get that fire effect of the lights shining through all the coals. And yeah, then it was just a process of pulling little bits of cotton off the cotton ball, soaking it in glue, squeezing out the extra glue before spreading it all over the place. And as you can see, I pulled my chair over so I could sit down. It's a fiddly process. I highly recommend sitting when you're working with miniatures. Otherwise, you can get a little rammy and things can break. That's my experience anyway. Oh, and when you're working with cotton and glue, it wants to stick to everything. I wanted it to stick to the bones, but it wanted to stick to me. So if you kind of slide your hands or your fingers away instead of just lifting straight up, I found that helped to keep the cotton sticking where I wanted it, as opposed to like just coming up off the mound with my finger. But yeah, the more I worked, the stickier everything became, and it just got a little frustrating, but it was kind of fun. Making a mess is always a little bit of fun when you're creating this kind of stuff. So I take a look back, and I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try. I let the glue dry overnight, so now the next day it's paint time. I'm using just a plain black acrylic paint, nothing particularly fancy or special. You can get dollar store stuff, and that's plenty good enough. To put the paint on, I found dabbing to be more effective than brushing. Dabbing prevents the cotton from moving around, so you can keep it where you originally put it and where you want it, and you don't have to worry about, having to re-put it back. Also, you're going to use a lot more paint than you thought you would. Even though that cotton had already absorbed a lot of glue, it's still thirsty. And oh boy, it used a lot of paint to cover all that cotton so that, a little bit of white is okay because you do get white ash in a fire. I didn't want too much white though. I didn't want it to look like cotton. I wanted it to look like, charcoal and ash and fiery stuff. So yeah, just heads up, you're going to need a lot of paint. Now what I'm doing is making a cover for the top of the cauldron. I used a piece of cardboard that I cut into like a donut shape with a little, what's that called? A cone of thin card. Now these beads I'm going to use for bubbles, and they were on that twist tie because I had tested some iridescent paint. I want the beads to look like bubbles, and I thought the iridescent paint would make them look a little bit more bubble-like and a little less bead-like. So I'm gluing those in place with some hot glue, and I also went ahead on the front of the cauldron. I didn't just lay down some hot glue to put the beads in. I put a lot of glue so that it would start dripping down a little bit. I wanted to try and cover the cardboard because it's that thick corrugated card that I used for the base of the fire. And I didn't want to see that corrugated edge on the top of the cauldron. I want it to look like a potion bubbling up and over as opposed to beads sitting on top of cardboard. So that's the reason I'm making this, is to cover up the battery box, which I'm hoping to store inside the cauldron. We'll see if this works. This is a total experiment. I was not planning to do this when I started this craft. but so far, I think it's coming out okay. This might work. I mixed up some white craft glue, just the regular school stuff, with my neon paint. I ended up going with the yellow and a little bit of green, mixed that together, and then painted the hot glue. As you can see, there's already color because I had started with just paint before, but it like gooped and globbed and completely disappeared. And it didn't look right for the first coat. So I thought putting some glue would like thicken it up and maybe give the second coat a better chance of staying where I wanted it to and looking really awesome. And I went with this because the bubble beads are yellow. So I just thought like bubble, potion, matching colors. It might look, makes sense. So I just dried it on top of the paint there. I thought that was ingenious. And then the circle of rocks encasing the fire pit. I knew I wanted rocks, but not until I started this project. I don't know why I didn't think about rocks. Anyway, so when I realized I needed rocks, I started panicking because I wasn't sure where I was going to get them. And then I remembered I have a collection of stuff that I've collected from the beach. So I went and looked at that stash to see what I could find. And these little pieces of beach ceramic, it was almost like they were made for this. They all fit together beautifully in this circle. I didn't have to overlap. Like, it was perfect. They were the perfect shape and size, and oh, I couldn't have planned it any better. Okay, now to finish off the top, the like cauldron cover, I glued a cotton ball to that thin card, the like cone with the top cut off. And I'm hoping that this will end up looking like smoke rising above the bubbling potion. It was pretty difficult, for whatever reason, getting the cotton to stick to the paper. So at this point, I don't know if it's going to look like what I want it to look like, but I'm just going to go for it.
I found these sticks in my backyard, and I liked them because they kind of have this bow to them, all of them. So I thought that would be a nice way of like getting the triangle shape and like tenting around the cauldron. I attached them first with hot glue and then wrapped this purple leather cord that was left over from another craft. I wrapped that around the top, and I added, I don't remember what this was from, but this little hook was already in the wire. I just cut the wire down a little bit and made a loop, and then just before I glued the final strip of leather, I threaded the hook on, glued that in place. Hopefully, because the cauldron is light-ish, this should be strong enough. Fingers crossed. This is the handle that comes with the cauldron, but after making the top, handle's too small. So I made a new handle out of some wire. The top, I went ahead and I used wet paint, but kind of brushed it, like I would with a dry brushing. And then I went in with my fingers, manipulated it a little bit more just to get the shape that I liked, and also to kind of mute down that gray paint, make it look more like smoke and less like paint. I made this to cover the battery box. I hope. Oh, I hope. I went ahead on the base with some dry brush black paint on these stones. I made them a little dirty. I went in with some white paint. It's a really thin white paint, so I figured I didn't need to like mix it with anything. And sure enough, I don't. It kind of spread into the black and created its own shade of gray, just to brighten it up a little bit, because working on this scale, you need a higher contrast in order to be able to see stuff. And I didn't want it to look like just a black blob. Added some extra bones, again, just for a little extra contrast. So I put some white bones on top of the mess, and just dabbed some black paint around them to sort of blend them in with the rest of the black. And when I was putting this together, I put the base in the center to make sure that the sticks were far enough apart. So the plastic handle, it's just got some little nubbins that go into the cauldron, and then when you pull those out, you're left with little holes. I twisted the wire in opposite directions, so I folded it at pretty much a 90-degree angle, and then I bent one going one way and one going the other, so that when it gets popped in the holes, it creates a little bit of tension to hold it in place. There it is, all finished with a Barbie to show the scale. This is like perfect Barbie decoration size. All I need now, I think, like some grass paper or like some AstroTurf kind of thing. And Barbie could probably use some sort of witch's outfit. I think I'm gonna have to make her a Halloween costume this year. Although this is cool too. I am so happy with this. The hot glue, leather, and wire is holding up very nicely for a little hanging hook. The little cauldron topper fits so much better than I thought it would. It was easier to work on the unattached cauldron without the battery box in it. But of course, without the battery box, I wasn't 100% sure if this would fit, but it does, and I'm so happy with it. So this is the awesomeness. I can take the little topper off, like so, and set it aside, and turn off the lights, so I don't have to leave the lights on all the time, and I can access the battery box to change out the batteries without having to pull anything apart. Oh, it's done. While I was finishing it up, I was under the delusion that today is Tuesday. It's actually Wednesday. Here I thought this was going to be a simple project that I'd be able to get done in just a couple days' time. No big deal. I can whip it up. Oh, yeah. This one gave my adrenals a run for their money. Oh, the stress. But I'm glad it's done. It was totally worthwhile. And yeah, I love that I was able to take that really cool decoration that I saw last year and shrink it into Barbie size, which is a little bit more manageable for me for display and storage, since I don't really have room on my front yard for something that big. One day maybe, but not yet. I'm going to go and drink some water and grab some supper and just sit for a while and rest. I don't like it when projects don't look like they're going to come together, but when they do get to that point, I like it when they come together. That is super satisfying. Thank you very much for watching this video, lovelies. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it maybe inspired you. I hope that you stay fabulous. I hope that you stay safe. And I hope that you know that you're loved. Bye.